Pascal Siakam did what? He was awesome. The Pacers were very good. They got a road win against a good team. Their best wins are awesome. Their worst wins are confusing, but right now, getting a lot of those best wins. We'll talk Pacers Suns on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Friday. Congrats. You made it through the weekend. Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes. And today, what a win for the Pacers in Phoenix. Their third win in a row. Their fourth win out of 5. They should probably have a 5-game winning streak, but they dumped all over themselves against Charlotte. They're playing pretty good right now in this game. The best of them by resume, the best of them by maybe how the team played. Honestly, Pacers did a lot of good stuff in this win over Phoenix. They took care of the ball. They defended pretty well. Their offense continues to hum. And we have a lot to discuss how their offense did it. Nembhard being great again. Toppin and McConnell together. Pascal Siakam. Wow, Ben Shepherd was back. But the biggest story is one I already said. Mr. Siakam. Holy cow. There's like endless things I felt like I could lead with for this part of this episode. This was the best 9 for 22 shooting game I've ever seen. I mean, 22 for 25 will not stand out to anyone for Siakam's game, right? But he was just awesome. 40 minutes. The reason what I thought about leading with, as I trip all over my words trying to transition from thought to thought, is how much the game turned in the fourth quarter the second he re-entered the game, like immediately, right? The game got, I wouldn't say dicey, but closer in the middle of the fourth quarter. The Suns got it to 10, I think. Yes, 10, exactly. 107-97 with 6:21 to go after a Kevin Durant free throw. And at one point, mind you, in this fourth quarter, the Pacers were up as much as 18 at 105-87, right? They were cruising, 19 maybe even, in that fourth quarter. And so that Suns run, I mean, we've seen the Pacers do this time and time again this year, where these games get way too close despite the Pacers having a major lead at some point in the game. Siakam comes in at that exact point. And, of course, his Jedi mind powers help Kevin Durant miss his next free throw, and the game stays at 10. Boom! He scores on his first possession. Cutting layup. Great pass from Haliburton. It looked like a quarterback to receiver, but like a short-range pitch pass. It was very impressive. Then some great defense from Siakam. And then he hits a 3 to make it 17 just a couple possessions later. He got some stops in the middle, and all of a sudden the Suns are taking a timeout because they're out of chances. Siakam scored 5 quick points and played some great defense and put the game away. And that was what he did all night, was just instant impact in like a billion ways. So a lot of his poor, air quotes, shooting from this game was his 4 for 12 first half. In the second half, he was 5 for 10 with 16 points. So he really picked it up at halftime, finishing with 25, which is already a good game, right? 25 points is great. 3 assists is a little below what you expect from him, but fine enough. Only 1 turnover. The standout number, though, is 18 rebounds. Holy cow. Not even a 5-man. Pascal Siakam was a beast on the glass in this game. A monster. I assumed, I typed a draft tweet with his stats, and I got to 18 rebounds, and I typed in parentheses career high, and I went to check, and it's not. He had 19 twice. He is a good rebounder for his size. He always kind of has been, and tonight he was awesome on the boards. It did not matter who he was guarding. It did not matter who was potentially between him and the basket. Yes, Mike Budenholzer teams do not crash the offensive glass. They only had 7 in this game, and 3 of them came from Grayson Allen somehow. But Pascal Siakam really took advantage of that reality. 18 boards. The Pacers had 47 as a team. 1/3 of their rebounds, more than that, went to just Pascal Siakam. He was a monster. Every miss, gobbled it up. And there was even one play, I don't remember exactly, it had to be probably a Grayson Allen offensive rebound, where immediately it led to a foul on the Pacers. And that was one of their biggest problems this game. They fouled 21 times. And they cut the camera to Siakam, and he's talking to 2 of his teammates, and he's holding up 2 hands in front of his face. He's saying, grab the ball, 2 hands, grab it. I've seen him do that in other games. Like, that's the kind of stuff he does for this team. Intangible, leadership kind of stuff that, of course, he is a pretty steady, play hard kind of guy. I think outside of that Heat game where every starter just looked pathetic, like he's been rock solid from an effort perspective all year, and rebounding can be an effort thing. In this game, he just had a will to get him, and the technique and the two-handedness and the attention to detail on the glass that they needed. And that led to a monster offensive night. Again, 25, their leading scorer. Their only guy over 20. They scored 120 and only had one 20-point score. Their balance was very impressive, and over a third of their boards. An incredible game. Incredible game. That is his Pacers high for rebounds. His previous season high was 11. He got 7 more than that in this game. So many good things to say about what Siakam did, just box score number-wise, and obviously the impact stuff I talked about when he came in late. He also defended pretty well. They don't have the matchup data in yet, but he played 40 minutes in large part because by far their best Kevin Durant answer is Pascal Siakam, right? He is their forward with that kind of capability from a range and mobility perspective to stay with them. And they don't have the matchup data in yet for the box score. Probably won't even be until tomorrow. But I'd wager that by far Kevin Durant's most common defender was Siakam. And KD played 38 minutes. No other Suns player played more than 31 and a half. That was Beal. All the rest were under 30 in this game, right? And some of that was that Booker only played in the first half, and I think a little bit of the third quarter. I can't remember, but he got hurt with a groin thing. But they countered KD with Siakam a lot of this game, and they didn't need to do that. Toppin was sensational, right? And Toppin guarded KD sometimes as well. But the fact that Siakam defended Durant pretty well at times, and you know how I know it was, even if it wasn't like showing up in the box score, KD was 15 for 27. He was fantastic. I really love Quinn Buckner announcing that game because Quinn Buckner does a great job with the Pacers part and talking about the Pacers perspective and, leading the broadcast in a Pacers-centric way and leading the fans to like, hey, you should want the Pacers to win. But he would, every time Kevin Durant would just do some like superhero stuff, he would just be like, he just gets so excited because I think Siakam said this in his walk-off interview with Jeremiah Johnson. Like sometimes defending Kevin Durant, it's like you're not even there, right? He's 7 feet tall. He's just going to flick his wrist and shoot over you and get points. And Siakam, one, made him work. I get that he was 15 for 27. That's fine, I guess. 3 for 6 from deep. Here's what KD had not going for him. 5 turnovers, right? A couple of those passing turnovers. And the other thing that stood out, because he played 38 minutes and had this huge load, 1, because no Booker, and 2, because he played 38 minutes, is that he was very tired by the end of the game. He looked exhausted. And so, yes, he could occasionally still do what they needed offensively down the stretch for Phoenix. Again, 15 made shots is unbelievable, but he couldn't defend also. And I think that helped the Pacers just keep rolling, right? He hit 2 threes in a row to cut it to 11 with 3:16 to go. And then I think he missed his next 3 shots or whatever. He took 3 more shots down the stretch. Pacers did enough to get it done. And so I think that was a major factor of this game too. So a lot of the key elements that helped the Pacers get this done, forcing Durant turnovers, doing enough to make him not just destroy them late in this game, winning the rebounding battle in the game where they shot a worse percentage, right? That's pretty unusual. The Pacers actually shot much worse from the field in this game, 5% worse, yet they won the rebounding battle. They were able to score very consistently in the second half. All sorts of stuff that were vital to the Pacers getting this win, a big win. All points back to Pascal Siakam. I don't know if this was his best game of the season. I think, obviously, everybody would point to the Boston game and him hitting the biggest shot that they've maybe had all season and that overtime clutchness. By game score, his best games were that Boston game, opening night in Detroit when he had 19, 8, and 9. He had the 29, 7, and 4 game on a very efficient night against Portland. I did forget about that one. Those stand out as some of his best nights, but 18 boards and 25 points. I wonder if by Basketball Reference's game score, this ends up being his best game of the season. And for the Pacers at a time where they need wins. And you heard him on that video the Pacers posted on their social media in the locker room saying, we got to keep doing this on the road trip. After they stomped the Pelicans, he was making sure they did it. Huge win for the Pacers, and they do not do it without Pascal Siakam. And oh, by the way, he did it on Thursday, which just so happened to be the day that NBA All-Star voting opened up. I think he's got the best case of any Pacer. I made that case a month ago. He's been just as good. I'll probably make it again in a couple weeks when the voting really heats up because he's been awesome, but they need to get some wins for him to have a good chance, and they got it against the Suns tonight. What else stood out? The bench duo of Toppin McConnell. Nembhard was great again. Lots of other guys we need to discuss here from this huge Pacers win on today's Locked On Pacers. Before we do that, though, we got to talk about two great groups of people. First up, Prize Picks, the best place to get real money sports action. They have over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app, where you can up to 1,000 times your cash. Make your holidays bigger and brighter with Prize Picks, the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports, because you can now win, like I said, up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. And you should join now, because this holiday season, Prize Picks is giving away 2 free picks in December, and they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas. What exactly are you doing on Prize Picks? Well, you're picking more than or less than on player stats about what you think is going to happen. For example, Jason Tatum, more than or less than 29 points. Anthony Edwards, for more than or less than 25 points. Anthony Davis, more than or less than 12 rebounds. What do you think is coming? Well, you can get in on the action with Prize Picks. Download the app today. Create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA. You'll get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the Prize Picks app. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Also, need to talk about Rocket RX. Today's episode is brought to you by Rocket RX. If you're ready to boost your confidence and take control in the bedroom, Rocket RX has the solution. Imagine feeling more prepared and performing at your best. Rocket RX makes it simple and stress-free. Rocket RX offers FDA-approved treatments for erectile dysfunction at a lower cost than branded alternatives. No more uncomfortable doctor visits or pharmacy trips. Everything is delivered straight to your door in discreet, plain packaging. With Rocket RX, you'll get trusted care from a real U.S. clinical team. Complete a quick 100% online consultation, and you could get your free prescription today. Visit rocketrx.com to get started now. It only takes 2 minutes right now. Our listeners can get 40% off your first order. How about that? When you use the code LOCKEDONNBA, that's rocketrx.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for 40% off your first order. Terms and conditions apply. Rocket RX, better sex made simple. Back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making this your first listen today and every single day. Check out Locked On Suns for your second listen. They'll talk about a rare loss for the Suns with Kevin Durant, and I'm sure a lot about Devin Booker getting hurt, another Suns injury, which has been their biggest issue in this era of the Beal, Durant, Booker era. But they played pretty well in this game. I actually wondered if they were going to win. At halftime, the Pacers were up by 1, and they were doing a good job in the turnover battle and were hot from 3. I thought if the Suns just cleaned up stuff a little bit, they could come back, and maybe if Booker played the whole game, they would have. But Pacers played a very consistent 48-minute game. Their shooting cooled off a bit. They only finished the game at 39%, which is totally reasonable, but they still were in control for a lot of the game. Their third quarter was excellent. Their fourth quarter was good enough. Their first half, outside of the first 6 minutes, were pretty solid. They played a really solid 48-minute game against a good team, which has been very rare for this Pacers team. A couple of things I want to point out that stand out about this game and in general about the Pacers of late. One is the continued thriving success of the Toppin McConnell duo. I think I'm going to write about this. I asked Ben Shepherd about it at practice this week. I think I did ask TJ McConnell as well. Those two were the Pacers bench last year, the only consistent really Pacers bench. Basically after November, they were always with it. And then everybody else was kind of a revolving cast of characters. And this year, I talked about this a couple weeks ago on this podcast. I can't remember exactly what date, but I talked about part of some of the reasons the Pacers bench had been worse than last year, which was a major part of the team not being as good as last year, right? Because they had so many games where the bench would come in to start the fourth quarter and they would just bury another team starters, and boom, the Pacers would just win. And they're the top scoring bench in the league. And even if it was 8th this year, whatever it was at the time I did that, it just wasn't the same. And there were a lot of reasons for that. Tonight, they kind of got that bench stuff. The fourth quarter started with Beal on the floor, with Nurkic on the floor. And it was a kind of bench group, but Myles Turner was in there. So there were more starters than normal because of the way the Pacers were structuring their front court. But that group kept the Suns at arm's length. They were up 19, 2 minutes into the start of the fourth quarter. And that got me thinking about the Pacers bench once again, and specifically that duo I just mentioned of McConnell-Toppin. I mean, they were both really good, and I just talked about Toppin on a solo show earlier this week about how his rebounding and shot making has majorly ticked up this month. And guess what happened in this game? Rebounding and shot making. The shots kind of stopped falling in the second half, but he still had 8 boards. And I mean, I still think it's remarkable that in December he's averaging more rebounds per game than he had in total in all but one game before December. So he's really hitting the glass hard. He made threes again. Again, the sick dunk was there. But when McConnell and Toppin are together, it's just crazy how good the Pacers offense is. 120.2 offensive rating when both those guys are on the floor this year. That's for a team that has an about 114 offensive rating right now. This is all per PBP stats. Their offensive rating with neither of those guys on is 113.8. With Toppin, no McConnell, it's 107.04. And with McConnell, no Toppin, it's 108.06. I don't think those guys are bad when they're separated. They're good players. They fit the Pacers style very well. That's why I thought their contracts were totally fine in the offseason. But just something about the way those two play together is just such a natural fit that is so tough for teams to contain. One's got the vertical spacing and shooting. The other one's just pressure on the rim. Good luck stopping that guy. And it makes this threatening combo that there isn't a good answer to besides just like you got to be laser focused the whole time defensively. And then you'll stop McConnell. And hey, Obi Toppin's going to cut around and he's going to make some threes. You got to pay attention to that guy. And the other three guys in the court are one of them is Pascal Siakam, and the other two can like still hit threes or still drive. Like it just makes so much sense. And in this game, that happened again, right? Where they just link up and are this crazy good duo leading a bench that is really important. And I don't really even care about their plus minuses not being that good in this game because the Pacers could score without Haliburton on the floor. They could score in Siakam's rare moments on the bench in this game because those two have been so good together. And I thought that was a very big takeaway from this game and for the Pacers in general this season. I think their bench needs to defend a little better. You could say that about just about any Pacers lineup, but I thought that was another major thing that stood out to me in this game. Once McConnell got going in the fourth quarter, like him and Toppin kind of alternated good halves, that made them a dynamic duo in another way. Toppin was great in the first half, finishing plays. McConnell finished his shots in the second half. The Ring of Honor guy with 11-5 in his first game out of that. I think generically, though, I've really highlighted two things that stood out to me. Everybody did something important in this game who played for the Pacers. I think Myles Turner, I want to go to him first. I thought his third quarter was massive for the Pacers. That was the best Pacers quarter of the game. Turner in that third quarter had 9 points, 2 boards, 1 steal, 1 block, was plus 11. He was making shots. He was destroying Jusuf Nurkic that quarter. Nurkic did not make a shot, played 6:42, had a turnover, was minus 10. That was a huge, huge stretch from Turner, and Siakam was excellent in that quarter as well. Turner finishes with 19 and 6. He was quite good. Nembhard was great again. If Nembhard has 0 turnovers, like it's just, he's so additive to any lineup, right? He does not he doesn't take away anything. He made both of his threes. He defended quite well. He had 4 assists. He was plus 11. Haliburton had 13 and 12. He was 4 for 9 from the field, all from 3. How about that for a game plan win for the Pacers? They didn't need him to be super rim pressure-y because of how good everybody else was. Then Mathurin came alive late in a major way, really kept the Suns away with a huge fourth quarter, 8 of his points and 2 steals in that frame, both of those steals leading to shots for him. That's half of his points in that quarter. How many times has Ben Mathurin have more points on shot attempts when he only takes 2 free throws and is 2 for 7 from 3? Really good stuff from him in the fourth quarter to find a way to be impactful in this game. Jarris Walker only played 5 minutes, 20 seconds. He chipped in an assist and a made shot. Thomas Bryant only played 4:31. He had 4 boards in 4.5 minutes. He's already showing what he's going to do for this team. Of course, the standout non-Siakam thing to me is what I already talked about. The Toppin McConnell duo and how they were able to keep the Suns away with what they were doing all night, especially offensively. But everybody contributed something meaningful in this win. They had 7 in double figures and only one 20-point score on a night they reached 120. And this is a fairly average, a little bit above scoring game for the Pacers this year. But 120 or last year, but 120 is a major win for them this year. Their record when they get there is very good, and they got it in this game, and they showed when they hit that level, they're good. They shot 44% from the field. That's not very good, and 39% from deep, but only 9 turnovers, 31 free throw attempts, good ball movement once again, good enough defense to force the Suns into 16 turnovers, and they didn't make a bunch of threes. It was a really impressive team effort kind of thing. And I think that is what they need to do against these good teams to win on the road is everybody chip in. Nobody's playing hero ball. Nobody's playing ball stopper. Nobody's sulking when things aren't going their way. They just all powered through and had good moments. And this is like the togetherness and energy this team had last year when they were picking up these big wins. So Such is life for the Pacers right now. 13-15, big win. I want to talk about Ben Sheppard returning, what it means for their rotation. He played quite well in this game. But I'll say this. They're 13-15 right now. You know what they were after 28 games last year? 14-14. I find that I almost thought that was like unbelievable. That was right before they strung together a bunch of wins. They were 14-14 before they went, I believe, 6-1 pre Haliburton's injury in that stretch after Christmas. But I mean, that stunned me that they're only one game worse than last year. Now, net rating wise, it's different. They have Siakam this year and they didn't last year, but last year they had Bruce Brown and Buddy Hield and a healthier Nesmith and Andrew Nembhard and Isaiah Jackson. So call it what you will. They're one game worse than last year with a lot going wrong. Haliburton slumping, injuries, a condensed schedule because of their Paris trip. Every win they can get's huge, and maybe they can build some confidence and pull off a run like last year. Tonight, a good step in the right direction, actually getting a good road win. Ben Sheppard was back for it, made a bunch of huge little plays. We'll talk about his return, what he looked like, what it meant for the rest of the rotation, because the Pacers have 10 guys that they can now play again. Before we talk about any of that, we got to talk about FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action and jumping on some NBA hoops with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. How about that? The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL and NBA right in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, happens to everybody, you can check out the latest stats. You can also view live play-by-play. You can see so much more. It's right there on the same page where you place your bet. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's on FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. I watched the Portland Trailblazers close out the Nuggets after Pacers Suns, so check out either of those shows. That was a great game. Anthony Simons had a buzzer-beater game winner. The Nuggets won the minutes with Jokic on the bench and lost to the Blazers. What? Locked On Nuggets will be very interesting. I can't wait for that one. Let's keep going here. Pacers Suns, the biggest thing we learned before the game and that happened during the game. Ben Sheppard, 16.5 minutes in his return from a oblique/rib injury, actually. It turns out it was both. Good to go conditioning-wise, it seems. If he's playing 16.5 minutes, who knows what that will peak at. And he was plus 11, the highest of any Pacers bench player. Turns out Ben Sheppard makes a lot of winning plays and doesn't mess up very much. Who knew, except for anyone who's ever watched him. He was everywhere in this game. When I tweeted, I thought this was super funny, even though I don't think anyone else did. He was everywhere, including in the same spot as Phoenix Suns players. He had a lot of fouls. That was his biggest downfall of this game, was his 4 fouls, because everything else he did was really impressive. Like, he only finished with 2 rebounds, but I believe he got his hand on 5 or 6 that someone else corralled. While I was tweeting about him having a good game and being everywhere, he jumped up over Grayson Allen and tipped one right to somebody else, right? Like that, those were huge hustle plays. He missed all his threes. He made a cutting layup, right? I think everybody has some level of belief in his shot. I don't know exactly what I expected to settle in at. Last year did not shoot it very well, but the form looks good. The college resume is good. The free throws go in. We'll see. Over 3 in this game, whatever. They were all fine shots. So that alone is good. Ben Sheppard can play defense, and he did that in this game against a team that has lots of guards and wings that are capable offensive players or can shoot. You need guys who are going to fight over screens and run around and contest, and Ben Sheppard did pretty well at all that stuff in this game. He can shoot some nights. He has this year in general, and he's just a credible player that makes a lot possible. Most directly, they don't need to rely on anyone they didn't expect to anymore, if that makes sense. All of their two-way guys, I think Dustin Dopirak tweeted this, he was in Phoenix, are in Orlando for the G League Showcase where the Mad Ants are this week. That's right, the two-way guys are actually in the G League. That is the first inactive game for Enrique Freeman and Quentin Jackson the whole season tonight in Phoenix. So that's like a big win for the Pacers. They can actually stop chewing through those guys 50 games. That's a small thing that doesn't matter too much to anybody but me, but I find it very interesting, and I think that it's a big deal for the Pacers to be able to push that clock back. They played 10 guys in a rotation that like they expected to. Their rotation was the starting 5 they've had for a while now, plus Sheppard, Toppin, McConnell, Walker, Bryant. I guess you could say they weren't expecting, air quotes, to have Thomas Bryant in the rotation, but whatever, some backup center. And those 4 guys, they have all that available to them. When they get Nesmith back, they'll have to, if no one gets hurt between now and then, make some tough decisions. But having 10 guys they got Nembhard back recently. They have Shepherd back, is like where they hope they'd be. And they can play everybody in ways that matter. And I think Shepherd playing 16 and a half minutes while Walker only played 5 minutes and 20 seconds is pretty telling. We'll see where that actually trends, because perhaps different matchups could suit that differently. But like, this is a pretty usable Jarris Walker game to me. He played a lot in Phoenix last year, guarded Durant, right? So we'll see where that ends up shaking things out rotationally. But that was the first standout thing to me during the game, was like, oh, the Shepherd was one of their first subs, right? I say, right, like you're verifying this with me, but he came in for Ben Mathurin and Toppin came in for Myles Turner. Those are their first subs of the game tonight, right? So I think there's a chance Shepherd's minutes actually even climb a tiny bit going forward, especially if he plays like that. High energy, mistake-free, no turnovers, right? Pretty nice outing that does shake things up. What also gets shaken up is, if he's at the 3 and they have Thomas Bryant back and Obi plays like that, like they just have to make decisions actually about what kind of lineups they can use. And in some ways that leads to bad ripple effects, like only 5 minutes for Jarris and only 4.5 for Thomas Bryant. In some ways that's really good. They get a lot of lineup versatility. Like they can be like, oh, Obi at the 5 for this stretch and at the 4 for this stretch and no Obi for this stretch. And, oh, let's use Myles Turner to start the fourth quarter tonight instead of to close the fourth quarter, because they know they're going to have Top and Siakam at some point, although Turner did end up playing down the stretch of the fourth. Or, oh, they can play Shepherd with the starters instead of Mathurin and have Mathurin not to start the game, but just have Mathurin in other situations. And Mathurin was awesome to close, and he played 37 minutes. Like, they just have options that all make sense. It's not like, we got to, rely on a two-way guy we didn't want to as much tonight, or, we got to, there's foul trouble. All right, Johnny Furphy, Rick Carlisle said before the game that, again, I wasn't there, but two reporters that, like, he said, hey, our plan was for Furphy to play 40 G League games this year, right? He hasn't at all, not a single one. And he was up for this game again, right? So lots of important ripple effects with Shepherd returning. I think that gets rid of the attrition part of the war, and they can actually put guys where they want, both in their rotation and with the Mad Ants, and that will help the development of some of these younger guys as well. So finally on the mend are these Pacers. I will be curious to track a couple things going forward. One, how much does Thomas Bryant play? And what do they kind of use as their trigger for needing him? I don't think Oso Ighodaro, the Suns' backup air quote center, is a guy you have to play a 5 against. Mason Plumlee only played 2 minutes and 42 seconds. I do wonder if Mason Plumlee had played more, if we would have seen more Thomas Bryant, but they went to Ryan Dunn as their 10th guy in the second half. Oso Ighodaro only played 4 minutes and 33 seconds, right? Really small groups from the Suns. Like Royce O'Neal's kind of the center. Kevin Durant's kind of the center, I guess. So that's not a team you need a backup 5 against. So they didn't turn to Thomas Bryant, right? There's a lot of Obi and a lot of Myles Turner. And I think that's interesting. I wondered if we'd see Thomas Bryant, and maybe we still do when he's on the team for longer, settle into more of a backup 5 every night, like Isaiah Jackson, Jalen Smith level minutes guy, or if he's going to be a spot minutes guy that they actually trust, unlike Moses Brown. But he did play. And then I wonder how they balance the Jarris Ben Shepherd thing going forward. Because for a while, remember, they were splitting halves, and now Shepherd at 16 and a half and Jarris at 520. Where does that shake out as the season progresses and as Shepherd even gets back into more game shape? They do have 2 days off before their next game, a back-to-back against the Kings and Warriors. I forget the order of games. I think it's Warriors first. Those two teams are both going to be very desperate for wins. They both have lost some games they would like to have back of late. They both lost this Thursday night before this. The Warriors play Saturday they play Saturday and Monday. So it's Kings Sunday, Warriors Monday, I believe. I hope I have that right. But both tough games against teams that are hoping to be better. If the Pacers can get one of them and go 2-1 in this road trip, they've got to be thrilled. If they were 500 against Toronto and Charlotte this year, they'd be 15-13 right now. So any chance to build back those losses that they don't want would be huge. That's where they are. Great win for the Pacers tonight against a good team. Finally, those double-digit wins against bad teams are in the rear view. They can talk about a good win. They are playing better. They're playing with more purpose. Their defense was good. They're forcing turnovers and not turning it over. Their stars look better. They're healthier. Lots of reasons for the Pacers to have a little smile, but they've got to maintain it. They have been so inconsistent this year that none of that really matters unless they can keep doing it for an extended stretch. Tomorrow, nothing. I can't believe it. They don't have a weekend game for the first time all season, so I will not be posting for 2 days. I'm sorry to everyone about that. I've really enjoyed doing a podcast on the weekends and after every game, but they don't play till Sunday. So the next time you'll hear me is Monday after the next game, and I will be out of town for the next couple podcasts at family stuff. So bear with me on the setup and audio quality there. But hope you guys enjoyed this one. I'm on Twitter and Blue Sky at Tony R. East. This podcast is on Twitter at Locked On Pacers. Don't forget about the free Locked On Pacers daily newsletter. You can sign up at lockedondaily.com. Thank you all for listening. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy IU Notre Dame if you're a local. We will see you on Monday.